Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Reviewing Comics with me, your host, Alexander Turbin. Today we're going to be going over Six Lords of Sound, an indie comic by Joseph Leonardo, who I think prefers to be called Leo, so we'll just call him Leo from now on. This is a comic that he produced just recently, and I actually printed for him. But before we get into that, I'd like to show you some of my own stuff. This is Random Access, and this is the sticker that's going out with the Patreon Random Access this month. It's a little late. It's actually quite a bit late. It's going out tomorrow. It will be on the 1st, so I deeply apologize to all my patrons. But it is definitely going out, and you'll have it shortly. This is Random Access number 23. It's a full size, usually full color, but for the last few months it's been black and white. But I'll be going back to the color shortly, and you can get these at patreon.com/AlexTurbin, or you can get them at alexanderturbin.com, or you could just message me at alexturbin0441 at Instagram, or alexturbin0441 at yahoo.com is my email. You can get these old random access at my website, alexanderturbin.com, where you can also get Mutandis and The Forlorn and Cyrene the Cleric and all of my other different comic book works that I've done. And I greatly appreciate all of the support you guys give me. But today we're going over Joseph Leonardo's work, which is really fantastic. And it was a pleasure to print this for him. I hope he sells out and he wants to print more, not just so I can print them for him, but because it's an outstanding work and it really deserves everybody to go and get a copy as soon as they can. I'm going to put a link to his Instagram. I think you have to contact him directly through Instagram to get a copy of it. But it's definitely a worthwhile thing to do. There's lots of ins and outs of this comic. It was probably the hardest printing job I've ever done, and it was a great challenge, and I loved the challenge, and I hope that he's happy with the printing. So it's one of the great things about the comic is that it's called Six Lords of Sound in Chaos at the Concert, and there's a little introduction about the main characters and some of Joe's or Leo's backstory and stuff about what's going on. But I mean, it jumps right to the story, and let's dive into the story first, and then I'll talk about the art and the writing and stuff, which I really think is really fantastic. It's the first thing that really jumps out at you is that this is a comic book about music. It's a comic book about metal in particular. I think it's about metal. I'm pretty sure it's about metal. But this is one of those things where a few years ago, I think Ben Mara did a comic book, and it was accompanied by an LP. And there was also a Prowler comic back in the 90s that was a little floppy record to it. I wish this came with some sort of CD, cassette tape, LP, something like that, just because it is so steeped in music and sound and all of that stuff that it's one of the few times that I think that a gimmick, which doesn't have to be a gimmick, because music and comics can certainly go together. How many times have I been reading a comic and had some music playing, and I'm like, wow, this totally goes with the comic book. This is like the theme song for the book. It's really it's a fascinating thing. It's just like having great music for a movie or a TV show, or it's something that could be integral to the comic book and to the story and to everything that's going on. So I kind of really wish that more exploration would be done with that. I know it's kind of difficult because you have the production cost of a record, or even a little flimsy floppy record like they did for the Prowler. But it can be done, and I think it can be done successfully. I think, did they do that with the Alice Cooper thing that I reviewed? I'm not entirely sure. I know it had some sort of accompaniment with his album that was coming out. So anyway, it jumps right into the action. This you can tell this is a spaceship, even though it's shaped like a guitar, and it's screaming through the interspatial void of space or time stream or whatever. So they're just zipping through the time stream, not the time stream. I don't think they're going through time, but they're going through space definitely. Although he talks about other worlds that were the where they came from. It's the because it's Adam Wrath and the Master Blaster, and they escaped from the doomed planet Arpeggio, and they just go through the universe, and they're trying to right the musical wrongs, and they fight the evildoers of the evil metal and stuff like that. So it's really a fantastic concept. But you also got this evil interloper who's come to Earth, and I think he was Master Blaster's. He was his Master Blaster's boss. He was like the head of Master Blaster, kind of like Sauron and Morgoth, I think. But Master Blaster turned good, and Hush, because that's his name, has Hush, and he is like the antithesis of sound, or he's the antithesis of music. I'm not sure how that plays out, whether he has streams of silence that he uses, or whether he just uses the different types of music to incorporate his power, which is one of the great things, because in this comic, Leo incorporates the music and power and strength, and he really mixes it all together. So Hush is at this concert. He's going to do some magical musical damage to the planet, where the Masters of Sound, the six Lords of Sound, come and they make their way to the planet because they don't want Earth to be destroyed, just like Archipelago. I said that wrong. Arpeggio. I assume that's a musical reference. I assume there's a bunch of musical references here that I don't get because I'm not a musician at all. That's one of the biggest art forms that I've just failed at, even when I've attempted to try it. But I assume that a lot of their names and characters and stuff, places are musically referenced, which is really awesome, because like Arpeggio, I know is a musical reference. But there's all kinds of references like that I'm sure musical people will pick up on, which is really cool. But they come to Earth, and they automatically, like, this jumps right into the action. There's no setup, or there's a little bit of setup, so you're not confused, but there's no like character involvement and woe is me kind of stuff. It's all just jumping into the music, jumping into the sound, jumping into the comic book. And so Master Blaster shows up at the concert. He starts wailing on his guitar, and Hush is like kind of blown back, and they have this little dialogue between them where they're like attacking each other verbally, as well as they're incorporating their sound as sounds of power. One of the reasons that this was a difficult print job for me was because I had to get everything all lined up as perfectly as I could, which, I'm not a professional, so I do, have a little bit of go between or in between or whatever. But also he does these double page spreads that connect together, which are really fantastic, because it really it harkens you back to the Rob Liefelds, the Todd McFarlane Image comics, and I know Leo is really has a lot of that as his influence, is the kind of spectacle of the Image comics. So he does a lot of these double page spreads, and I really tried to sync them up as best as I could, and I think I did a really pretty good job. So you have Hush here, and he's sending out his sound minions, or sound wave creatures or whatever, and the Masters of Sound are fighting them back as best they could, and the Master of Sound, as the leader of the Sonic Force, Master Blaster quickly takes the place in the Battle Vanguard, unleashing sonic devastation on the Anti-Void. So it's Hush the Anti-Void, and that's really another symbol for the musical battle that's going on. So they're just kind of fighting, and really this comic is a huge fight scene, which in by no means is a bad thing. It's really got some really fantastic stuff going on. We're gonna really dive into the art a little bit later afterwards. But they're just kind of going back and forth where Hush gets a little bit of an edge when he unleashes his creatures, and but the master of sound, I can't remember it, Adam Wrath, he just kind of comes out of nowhere and unleashes his guitar. And there's also other characters because there's 6 Lords of Sound, so there's 6 of them, and they're really fantastically drawn. I think I skipped over one page that introduced, nope, not yet, that I particularly, I love this panel right here. That's the ice, she's like fire, ice and sound, which is really, she's part of the 6 Lords of Sound. So yeah, it goes back and forth, and they're fighting and unleashing their devastation. Eventually, they decide that Hush is too powerful for just 3 of them, and they have to call down the rest of the Lords of Sound to help in the battle against Hush and the anti-void. And so they beam down, which is really a cool way of showing it. Leo does a great job. It's teleportation, or it's just like like Star Trek. I mean, they beam down, and it's really got some cool effects with the Kirby dots and stuff. And really, the Kirby dots, that really illustrates the amount of sound and energy. This whole comic is just, if I had to sum it up in one word, is energy. It's just one big ball of energy that Leo has just unleashed upon the world. So these other 2 come down, and they just start wrecking savage riffs and start beating on Hush. But he's a powerful creature. He's one of the great Lords of Sound, I guess, and that's why Adam Ratz, he was his apprentice, and then he broke away, and he wants to fight back against Hush. So another doubles page spread, and this is them just kind of attacking each other and just really throwing all they have at each other, which is really fantastic. One of the things that I was thinking when I was reading this is a couple of things. I would really love Tenacious D as the soundtrack. I don't know if Leo likes the D, but I could totally see Jack Black and Tenacious D doing the soundtrack for this, and I think they would totally love it and wreck it, and it would be awesome. Wreck is in awesome. I think they would be do a great job. I personally love Tenacious D and think it would be great. But another thing is that this is so much like one of my favorite, if not one of my favorite movies, but one of my favorite scenes in a movie of all time is Crossroads, when Ralph Macchio and Steve Vai, is it Steve Vai that it's some metal guitarist, and they do a final battle of the bands at the end of the movie where I cannot remember. It's not Steve Vai. I can't remember his name. He's laying down these awesome riffs, and Ralph Macchio is trying to keep up with him, and he does pretty good, but he's finally beaten at the end. But in the beginning of the movie, Ralph Macchio was doing classical guitar, so he boots up the classical guitar and he starts going to, it is freaking fantastic. I love that scene in the movie. It's one of my top scenes in any movie, really, because the other guitarists just can't keep up with Ralph Macchio's classical guitar riff. And this is what a lot of this reminds me of. They're just having like a battle of the bands, a crossroads, demons and stuff. And it's really got so much energy and everything. The fact that Leo's art is so kinetic just lends to all of the excitement of the book. So, like I said, you kind of go back and forth where one is gets the upper hand, like Hush gets the upper hand, and then one of the other characters she unleashes because they all have special powers. They're all a band, they're a superhero team, and it just all mingles together. And she's like got the voice of a rock star, and uh, why can I not remember his name? Adam Rath is obviously the lead guitarist and maybe does some of the vocals as well. But he's just letting it. She just lets it go, and she's attacking everybody. But one of the other characters, Percussor, wielder of the sacred war wands, capable of kinetically charging the ancient devices and unleashing them and his enemies as a sonic tsunami. So the writing is fantastic. I'm going to get back into that, like I said. But the fact that he's got this huge bruiser of a drummer is really fantastic. And they're just like, I assume that he's the bassist and she's maybe like a backup singer or some kind of other singer. So they're just fighting back and forth, and these interlaced double page spreads, sideways comic panel pages is really fantastic. And it just these faces and these panoramic scenes are just wonderful. So we're getting to a really cool part here. Where Hush, he's starting to get the upper hand. He's got all of his minions. He's taking over the crowd of the concert, because everything takes place at a concert, and he's starting to destroy the six lords of sound. He's starting to kick their asses a little bit, and when then finally the six lords of sound, they turn the volume up to 11. And they just kind of start turning into these ethereal, magical sound, liquid light, solid sound kind of thing. And they're ready to fight Hush. And this is one of the really fantastic things that Leonardo is including into his book. I'm not entirely sure how he's attaching it. I attached it with some tape and some staples because I never wanted to get lost. But it's a it's a pullout of 3 pages on the front and the back. He had it printed specially for this book, and you're going to insert it somehow. I'm not sure how he's actually inserting it, or if he's just going to have it indicated that that's when it's to be inserted. Oops, sorry. But it's really a fantastic book. The way it's done, it's really reminds me of Ronin and the pullout that Frank Miller did with that. And like I said, it's on the other side. So you read it from here across, and then you read it from here back. And this really, the first half of the pullout is the setup, and then the second half is the resolution with the death metal. So it's a metal book, and that's when the master of sound really starts to kick Hush's ass, and they finally, after this 3-page pullout, which is really amazing and huge, there's a huge sonic boom, and they just destroy Hush, or they send him to another dimension or something like that. I'm not entirely sure what actually happens to him. I don't think he dies, because I think he'll be back, because he's a really cool villain, and so I hope he comes back. But the concert goers are just like, that is awesome, and they're just like, yeah, this kicks ass, and that's how the first issue of the Six Lords of Sounds ends. And it's really, they probably think it's just a part of the concert that they're going to, but it's not. Obviously, there's been a huge battle between good and evil and sound and stuff. So it goes into the Heart of Silence, which is the next book that he's going to come out with, and he said that that's going to have a little bit of the backstory of the Six Lords of Sound, which is really awesome, and I'm really looking forward to it. And here's I think this is just a little pinup, and here's a little advertisement for me, and an advertisement for Soaked in Blood, the next Soaked in Blood by Nathaniel J.K. Papers, and so yeah, this was a huge huge embarkment to print, and it's a huge embarkment to read. It's not in any way bad, because it's not overwhelming. It's all comes together clearly. The writing, he isn't like the Image Comics writers. Joe Leo is actually a very good writer. He doesn't do a lot of the things that a lot of poor writers do. You see, there's a lot of narration going on, but it's not superfluous at all. It's all pretty much needed to continue the story. And that's one of the great things about the writing that he does, is everything continues the story, everything moves the story constantly, and it goes at a frenetic pace. So there's no time when you stop and you gather your thoughts, because you're on to the next thing, which is really an interesting way to do it. And the pace is really fantastic, because as a musical comic, you don't want to stop. You don't want to have that quiet time where, two characters are like, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? That's the death knell of any kind of story. If you're ever watching a movie or a TV show or whatever, and they say, hey, how you doing? That's the end of the show right there. The writers are piss poor, and they should not be coming back for any more episodes. Yeah, the writing is really great. It's not like the Image writers. He actually has some really credible things to say, especially about music, but also just about power and all of this other stuff. You can see that this is a huge, massive labor of love. You can tell that Leo loves music. He loves comics. He loves these characters, and that really, really, truly shows through in his artwork, which we are going to talk about now. Leo's artwork, as I said, the one word I would say is energetic or frenetic or explosive. So I guess there's not one word I would say. I would say that there's a lot of words. He's got some really great darks, black spotting, which we've talked about. He's got some really fantastic light sources, which is one of the things that I really truly appreciate. A lot of comics artists don't use a lot of light sources. The Image guys, I think that was probably their biggest strength, was using a powerful light source so that they could go in with the spotting of their blacks and really kind of tighten everything up. Nothing in here is confusing at all. All of the characters are very distinct, and they're unusual. All of the creatures that Hush creates, they're very awesome looking demons and cool stuff. And like I said, the Kirby dots and the energy exchange and the awesome sound effects and stuff. You have to have heavy sound effects in a musical comic, and he certainly does. And he places them perfectly correctly. Yeah, so this is really a fantastic comic, and I urge everybody out there to contact Leo and get it. This is not the final version of the 3-page spread that's pulled out. This is just a copy for me to have, and it was like while I was printing it to figure out where all the pages and stuff go. This will actually be one piece of paper and folded in perfectly for the book, so you don't have to worry about it. This is just a working copy for me. So yeah. It's a great labor of love, and you can tell he loved every minute of it, and he was probably cranking some music while he was creating this at the whole time. And it's such a unique vision. I don't think there's anything like it out there. And if anyone has ever seen any other musical comics or anything like that, let me know, because I'd like to check them out as well, and probably Leo would like to too. But yeah, this is really a fantastic book, and I love his artwork. He every panel, every page, he puts it all into his artwork. He doesn't slack off at all, and as you could tell, he doesn't have fatigue. A lot of creators, myself included in particular, about halfway through we have some fatigue where the artwork starts to loosen up a little bit, and the detail starts to not be quite as detailed as before, but none of the pages are like that. He travels on the book. He doesn't quiet down at all with the illustrations. Everything is super detailed as the beginning, and he's really got some really great detail. He's got these great anatomically correct figures, and he's got really great poses. And but his little ink work, his little detail is really one of the strong parts for me. His feathering and his hatching, his cross hatching, it's really one of the great things I love about his art. I could go on and on about what I think about his art. I mean, there's so many other artists that or other people that I know that appreciate his art. So I really hope that he gets out there a lot more, and I hope that you guys, like I said, pick this up and really appreciate it as much as I do. So, Six Lords of Sound, created by Joseph Leonardo and printed by myself. If you guys have a comic and you need it printed, or I'm a small run printer, so I can only do like 25, 30 copies at a time. But if you're interested and you want to get your comic out there, then just drop me a line and I'd be happy to listen to you. I'm way cheaper than any of the other places and stuff like that, because I know I'm not a professional. So, I mean, there's pros and cons for that. But it's a great comic. And I urge everybody out there to get it and to enjoy it and to soak it up. And let me know if and when you do get it. Let me know what you thought of it. And if you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell and hitting your thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that too. But more than that, I really appreciate the comments that you guys give me on either the review or the comic or anything like that. So I really, really, truly want to hear everything you guys have to say about the comics that I'm reviewing, because this is a labor of love for me as well. I love comics, and I love talking about comics, obviously. So if you got something to say, don't be shy. Throw out some comments in the comment section, and I will definitely reply if I see it. Sometimes I might not see it, but if I ever see it, I'm going to reply, and you can count that as a fact. So thanks for watching, and just like Leonardo is going to, keep on creating.